Hello, the internet. Happy Friday, and welcome to episode 17 of Enter the Popverse. I am Ashley Victoria Robinson, your video producer and host here in Enter the Popverse. This is, of course, our weekly pop culture roundup and chat show where we talk all things geeky, all things newsy, all things exciting going on here in the Popverse. And if you didn't know, the Popverse is, of course, a virtual realm created by Read Pop, where we are celebrating the very, very best in TV, movies, and comics. I am so happy to have you with me for another day, another live show. And I want to let you know, as always, that if you are interested in these stories, anything that we're doing, more details, videos, written content, you can always visit thepopverse.com or click down to the show notes after the show goes live to see everything that we are getting up to at all times. My friends, let's see who's here in the chat. Jake Hefner kicking us off with a very lovely, very polite top of the morning Popverse. Top of the morning to you too, my good friend Jake Hefner. So happy to have you here, usually with the first comment, which we love so very, very much. Noex says, hi to you too, and welcome. I think this might be your first stream with us, so I'm extra excited to have you with us today. I also want to remind you that we are doing a ton of exciting live shows all the time. And our next live show is Florida SuperCon at the end of June and the beginning of July. Head over to floridasupercon.com and get your tickets right now because I'm getting up to a lot of exciting things over there. Everyone on Team Popverse is getting up to a lot of exciting things over there. And I know you are going to want to join us and have the most amazing time possible. Noah says, yes, it is their first time. Well, then an official welcome. I love you. And I'm so happy to have you with us today. I want to remind everyone, of course, before we get too deep into all of the exciting business that we have going on today, that this month is, of course, Pride Month. And here in the Popverse, we have a lot of exciting content going on, including a very fun car racing ad so that you can, you can celebrate along with us, whether you are underneath the Pride umbrella or you are an ally. We're so happy to have so much incredible Pride content coming out this month. So happy June. And happy Pride season to everyone. And special shout out to Deputy Editor Tiffany Babb for curating some of the most fun stuff that we are getting up to there this month. My friends, my darling Popverse friends, I know you came here because you saw the tweets and you saw the thumbnail and you know what we're going to do and you know who we're going to talk to. So please join me in the Popverse tradition of the Theater Kid round of applause in welcoming award-winning author behind Poison Ivy, known for creating Kamala Khan Miss Marvel, and the upcoming The Hunger and the Dust. Welcome, Willow Wilson. Hello.
Hi, Popverse. Thanks for having me.
How are you doing today?
I am good. It is raining in Seattle, so all is right with the world.
Oh, well, I'm glad it's raining there because I am in Los Angeles and it was raining here for a long time and we were having a whole identity crisis over that.
I heard it was dramatic. Yeah, we kind of sent you our weather, so glad to have it back now.
I know. Thank you for doing the good work and taking it back.
No problem. I do what I can.
So let's get right into it. I know we're going to talk the DC and the Marvel of it all, but I really want to talk to you about The Hunger and the Dust because I've been lucky enough to read it and it's so incredible and the covers are so beautiful.
Aren't they? Oh my gosh.
They're like stunning, like all the variants across the board. So stunning. But so let's start off with, of course, the biggest question. How did this idea come about?
So this was kind of a pandemic era idea that I started kicking around in quarantine when a lot of books were paused. And so, you had sort of a lot of time to kind of reflect in good ways and bad
on your life and your choices.
Yes, exactly. And in my case up here in Seattle, the summers were kind of a double quarantine because we had, of course, the pandemic on one hand and fire season on the other. So the air, like it is on the East Coast this week, was dangerous, unbreathable. You had to sort of like stay inside with your windows closed, and it was just absolutely, it really did feel like the end of the world, like without exaggeration. And I just started kicking around this idea about for a book set in a fantasy world that is collapsing ecologically at a somewhat faster rate than ours, but in ways that kind of parallel our own, and in which orcs and humans are forced to band together to save what is left of this vanishing world from threats both ecological and other and monster.
Yeah.
And I didn't think it was going to become a thing. I thought it was just sort of, something kicking around in my head because I'm always running sort of story background processes, even when I'm not actively writing. But it stuck and it stuck and it stuck. And at some point, I was like, you know what? Life is too short. Life is too short not to pitch the hot orc book.
Yes. Oh,
And so,
people
yeah,
are
I brought it to,
very hot in this book.
yeah, I brought it to IDW and I expected them to be like, what? But instead they were like, heck yeah, let's do the hot orc book. So I'm very grateful to them for giving it a shot because I think it's just turned out brilliantly.
I'm a huge fantasy fan personally, and I very much come from like the J.R.R. Tolkien, Lord of the Rings, good guys are good, bad guys are bad, pre-1950s school of fantasy thought.
Mhm.
And you're exploring so much interesting character dynamic and you're unpacking the myth of like who and what orcs are. So I know you talked about in the macrocosm, it was about a world sort of mirroring our own collapse emotionally and maybe literally at the time when the idea was conceived. But did you go into this knowing that you wanted to take this giant trope and like a Jenga tower deconstruct it for us?
I did, yeah, yeah. I mean, I kind of got orc stories from 2 sides. Yeah,
Mhm.
I too grew up with, Tolkien and The Lord of the Rings, not just the books and the movies, but the old BBC radio play,
Oh my
and
god,
so that was sort of very much
yes.
part of my DNA growing up. But at the same time, I love playing MMOs, I love World
Mhm.
of Warcraft, Elder Scrolls, all of that stuff, and so I was also getting, Thrall and Garrosh Hellscream and all of these great
Yes.
orc characters from sort of newer fantasy worlds, where, like, orcs are very different than what we see in sort of Tolkien's world, in some really interesting ways. And I kind of wanted to push that even further in this series. And so, we see orcs who have a very built up, intricate culture, hierarchies. In a lot of this story, we sort of live among ruins. We're seeing the ruins of other
Mhm.
civilizations, and the only people left are kind of living their lives in the shadow of great civilizations that have collapsed and are now gone in distant memories. And, orcs are really kind of the memory keepers. They're the only ones that still have libraries, that still study these old texts, that have managed to preserve some of this old knowledge, even though the civilizations that created it are now gone. So it's just sort of taking that, kind of generic what if orcs were good guys and
Yeah.
developing a little bit more so that it's got nuance. We see relationships that should feel very genuine and very interesting and quite sexy at times. So it hopefully will feel like a fully realized world that takes a lot of the good meaty stuff that we as fantasy fans enjoy so much and kind of holds it upside down and shakes it to see what falls out of its pockets.
Okay, because you evoked Garrosh, I have to ask that, fantasy names and sci-fi names are like so layered, they mean a lot. And we have some really good fantasy names in The Hunger and the Dusk. So
Yeah.
knowing that, was this like stressful to you to be like, not only do I have to come up with a cool name, but it has to mean something and like layer in telling me about these characters before we even really meet them? Like, what is that like?
Oh, yeah. No, it was a lot. There was a lot of background work, not just from me, but also from Chris Wildgoose, my co-creator, who's the artist on the series,
And a
who
fantastic
did oh my gosh, he has done the most intricate visual world building that I think I've ever seen on
Mhm.
a series. Like, when you see these characters in the book, you'll see sort of the armor that's on the outside that they're wearing, but he's designed every single layer
Mhm.
of that outfit. So, like, I have in my inbox, which hopefully will end up in extras, somewhere, sketches that he's done where he shows, okay, this is what we see on the page. This is what they're wearing underneath. This is what's underneath that. This is what this means. This is where this is from. And it's just incredible. And it's all like that. It's all like that. So he has put in just an absolutely tremendous amount of work to this world so that it feels very lived in. And that's certainly what I was trying to do as well with naming conventions. I have sort of the rudiments of a couple of different languages. I love languages.
Mhm.
I speak several poorly. And so I was thinking about sort of grammatical structure. Where does the nouns and the verbs go, and how do they make sentences, and how can I pull pieces of that out so that even in just a couple of little bits where we hear characters speaking in another language, you can start to see words pop out where you're like, oh, I know what that means because I heard it 2 pages ago in reference to something. So yeah, there's a lot of background work in this. Um, Hopefully it shows, and it just,
It does.
even for me, having lived with it for so long, feels um, like there's always little details that keep popping out as you go back to it. So it's very exciting that people are going to see it next month.
I know, it's so exciting. I had to resist tweeting all of my favorite things about it and retweeting them yesterday. So my thread is like, it's ready for July 12th to go
Oh, perfect. That's
live.
great.
But what I'm hearing is there's a lot of merch possibilities. So if anyone's intrigued by this, we're going to tweet at IDW. We're going to tell them that we want the merch.
Yes,
Because
absolutely.
also because you evoked Chris, I would love to ask, what is your workflow like with your collaborative team? Because everyone on the book, from cover artists, letterers, like everyone is at an absolute 11 from panel to panel. So what is that like leading this team?
Absolutely. It's very collaborative. We're all always sort of batting ideas back and forth. Just yesterday, I was kind of lurking in an email thread between between Chris and Michelle, who's our wonderful colorist, and they were talking about how to color like layers of this ruin and sort of base it on layers of limestone over rock in the pyramids in Egypt and like all of this stuff.
Casual.
So literally, like these are the conversations that are happening between all the members of the team over stuff that is that granular. So
Mhm.
like there really is no word for this book but epic. From
Absolutely.
the art and the story and the colors and the lettering. Simon Boland, whom I love, I worked with on Sandman and some other stories. So he's our wonderful letterer. And, he's coming up with fonts for these monsters and different things. So, yeah, as you said, everybody's working at an 11. And yeah, I mean, I just love to be able to kind of watch that unfold and see all the different ideas build on each other, work those ideas back into the stories so that, the art and the colors and the letters and the story all kind of support each other. But yeah, it's a fantastic team. It really is.
And our lovely, I love her so much. I'm so obsessed. Our lovely lady orc lead, is it Tara or Tara? Let's get the linguistics out
Ah,
right.
yeah. In my head, I've been saying Tara.
Okay, great.
So it's
So
short for a very long name that she has because she's kind of an aristocrat, but everybody calls her Tara.
I know we're gonna see if I'm hoping you'll come back and we'll talk about it when there's a few more issues out, but we'll see if I feel brave enough to attempt the name the next time. But Miss Tara, I think she is posed to be such an icon. She's gonna explode. Twitter's gonna love her. You're also
She's
working
super
on
cute.
Poison Ivy, who's also like amazing, an icon, having such an evolution right now. You co-created Kamala Khan, who is about to explode on the big screen. So we only have a few minutes left, but I would be remiss if I didn't ask you to like tease out your excitement for the Marvels. And we had the Miss Marvel television show, which was so incredible, but seeing Kamala make the leap to the silver screen, what has that been like?
It's just amazing. I mean, I still pinch myself, and Iman is just the perfect person to play this part. I got to chat with her while they were filming the series for Disney Plus. And she is really truly just a fan first and foremost, and that comes through so wonderfully in her performance. It's just still incredible to think back on how this book started, and the
Mhm.
very modest ambitions that Sana Amanat and I had for the series, and to see how far it's come in so short a time, and how many people have been touched in some way by the character and by the series. And now to see a generation of actors who were sort of young kids in the target audience for the original book now growing up to play those characters on screen, and it is just absolutely wild to me, and I will never get over it. It's incredible.
And we're hoping the same thing for The Hunger and the Dusk. Big
Yes.
fantasy,
Fingers
epic,
crossed.
full of hot people because they're so like it's Pride Month. This book, my friends, is a bisexual dream. I promise you. Like I'm already like kiss, kiss, kiss. Give it to me.
It's true. It's true. Yes. Give the people what they want is a big theme in this book.
Exactly. So my final question for you, because here in the Popverse, we celebrate the best in TV, movies, and comics. What are you geeking out about right now that you are not working on? And I feel like you're working on everyone's favorite things. So I think it's a
Oh,
good question.
there's so much good stuff coming out now that
Mhm.
I feel like narrowing it down is tough. I'm really psyched for the 3rd season of Witcher, which I guess is Henry Cavill's swan song as Geralt, which is bittersweet. I'm really, really hyped for that. That was one of those things where I wasn't sure how it was going to end up. Is it going to meet expectations? How is it going to be? And it's just been so much fun. Let's see what else. Um, I'm excited for the new Birds of Prey, the
Oh,
comic book that it
yes.
just got announced, and the little bits and pieces have been teased out. That's going to be super exciting. Um, there's so many people now who are doing things that I just sort of squee behind my computer about, and Kelly Thompson and Gail Simone are definitely 2 of those people. Yeah, gosh, what else? There's new Diablo. New Diablo's coming out. I'm not gonna play it anytime soon because, I'm up to my eyeballs in work and children, but I'm
I'm
very
so
excited that it's there.
person who's
So,
obsessed
yeah.
with video games, so that's very
I know, yeah, I
exciting.
just sort of just decided to cover all the bases.
Okay, so people could come and they could find you in Diablo like a year from now, 2 years from
Right,
now.
yeah,
You have
yeah.
5
Once
seconds of
everybody's
free
figured
time.
out all of, the little tricks and things and all of the explainers are online, then I'll start playing.
Oh, that's like me trying to play Breath of the Wild or any Zelda game and figure out where all the clothes are.
That's right.
G. Willow Wilson, thank you so much for joining us here in the Popverse today. It was not nearly long enough. I hope you will come back and we will talk more orcs in the future.
Absolutely, my pleasure. Thank you so much.
Bye. Ah, my friends, how amazing is she? That was a real moment for me personally. Thank you everyone for coming. And I'm not kidding when I say I really, really did love The Hunger in the Dusk #1. If you've been following me for a while, you know I'm a huge fantasy fan. So I hope that you will take my recommendation as the highest compliment and piece of love that I can offer. But because she evoked Birds of Prey and accidentally gave me the perfect segue, I think it's only appropriate that we bring in our unwilling and unintentional co-host of this show, Mr. Graham McMillan, to talk all things Birds of Prey.
Unwilling.
Well, I never asked you, I just made you. That's why I say unwilling.
It was the perfect segue, though, wasn't it?
I know. I was like, I feel like we're psychically bonded, which means a lot to me personally. So it's great. She was looking out for me. I loved it. How
I
are
also
you?
love how very excited you were about that interview. You could see on your face, you were just like, I love this book. I love orcs. I love fantasy. I love you.
Here's
The
the
whole
thing.
thing.
I don't love orcs, which is why I think this book is like so great. Because I was like, do I love them now? Do I love her now? Am I gonna marry this orc? Like, everyone is so hot. It's like not fair.
I love this very much for you.
Thank you, thank you. But how are you today? That's the big question.
I am good, and like Willow, I am very excited for Birds of Prey. Like,
Okay.
I'm really genuinely excited for this book.
You and I have been high key going back and forth about this all week. Oh, look, the racing car ad is back. That you dragged me for in the comments, my friend.
Who doesn't love racing car ads? Come on.
I'm not a dad, so my appreciation for racing cars extends to like Ford v Ferrari was a good film. The end.
It obviously goes further if you have them in your sidebar. I'm just throwing that out there.
No. Tell me about Birds of Prey.
Birds of Prey is a new book as part of Dawn on DC that Kelly Thompson is writing. It's her first DC. It's not her first DC story. She's doing something for the Harley Quinn anthology that's coming out, but it's her first DC series. And she's reuniting her Hawkeye team for it. So it's Leonardo Romero on art and Jordi Belair on colors, which is just going to be such an amazing looking book. Even just the teaser art they've released is amazing. Like that Barda that Romero did is such an amazing looking Barda. I love the preview art.
Okay, can we also talk about how Jordi Belaire's just like good at everything in comics? Like,
Yeah, it's kind of amazing. Like Jordi Belaire is a great writer, and like I feel he should be writing more things.
yes,
Can you and I both agree on that? Let's get Jordi Belaire writing more things.
yes, all the things, and they write about witches, which is even better.
But no, so this is launching in September, I believe. And they have been teasing. One of the things I've loved so much is they've been teasing the members of the team all week. It's been a slow rollout where they're like, and now here's a new member each day, which is so fun. I said this on Twitter, but do you remember the I Am an Avenger teaser campaign of it turns out 13 years ago because I'm old?
Oh my God, yes.
It's 13 years ago. Congratulations on also being old. But
what do you mean? I was definitely only like 13 years ago. What are you talking about?
but I love that when it happened as well. But I love that because you've seen Twitter go wild every single day for the new announcement, which has been so much fun just to see people excited and see people guessing who's coming up. And spoilers, I've known who the entire team is since the beginning of the week. So
say it into my iPhone, Graham. Say it.
I'm not going to say who the last member is. You'll all find out very soon, but I'm not going to say who it is on this. I'm not going to accidentally spoil it. I've been fighting the urge when people have been guessing to be like, no. But it's, I don't know. Like, were you a Birds of Prey fan from the original run, from like the Chuck Dixon era or the Gail Simone era, or?
Oh, I am a Chuck Dixon girly because that's my favorite era of Batman and DC Comics. It's like the full Bat family. It's my favorite arrangement of like people in the specific roles in the Batman family. When they made the collection of that era, I reread it, and it's so beautiful in that 90s way where every woman looks like she's a Barbie with a lightly managed eating disorder. Like I really like can't say enough good things about Birds of Prey as a concept. I have not watched the OG television show. I do apologize to the purists, but Birds of Prey has been one of the teams that I followed the longest, actually.
I would argue that not watching television show is a way to keep your love for Birds of Prey, because
do you think so?
That was not a great television show. But no, it's such a fun concept. It's such, because it is like, especially in the Dixon era, it was sort of Mission Impossible in that they were just like, okay, you can come in for this mission. Okay, you can come in, but you had all the personality clash. It was a team up book that didn't reveal as a team up book. Do you know what I mean? They were just like, okay, Power Girl's in for 4 issues, but then she's out, but she might come back later. And it was just,
Power Girl's having like a real moment right now too, so maybe we're gonna have like a reprise of that.
I'm saying nothing. I'm not spoiling anything. I'm not.
No, that's me. That's me putting my tinfoil conspiracy hat on again. It's shaped like a Chinese takeout swan or duck, depending on your preference.
but the Birds of Prey is such a fun book. And honestly, Kelly's such a fun writer. Like, I think Kelly
writes such good teams.
And it's been completely underrated for what they've been doing at Marvel. Do you know what I mean?
Agree.
Like, Kelly has really, really been doing great work at Marvel. And I don't think it's really been recognized by the fan base, by the audience. Outside of, honestly, the Captain Marvel fans, because Kelly has been keeping that book alive and singing for 50 issues. You know?
Also, if you are an old school Gem fan and you have slept on Kelly's work in the Gem comics, like that's something to go back and check out. So for you, is Big Bart is your favorite of the announced lineup of the cast and crews?
Yeah, although I've got to say I'm a really big Black Canary fan as well. So, as long as Dinah's there, I'm good. But Big Barda and Dinah together, I think is going to be fun. But Barda was part of the Gail Simone run for like a small amount of issues. But I think Kelly in particular is going to come up with some fun headbutting moments between the two of them.
Yes, I definitely agree with that. I also just love the inclusion of Batgirl as she is, and I love the design of the cowl. Like that is the thing that really sparked my mind when I started to see the concept art of the characters coming together. I was like, yes, the costume is great.
But also, like, Romero's just such a good artist. Like, that lineup that they've been revealing is like, it evokes Alex Toth, it evokes Bruce Timm. Like, it's got all these callbacks to classic art, but it feels so contemporary. It's I'm really, also, spoilers, everyone. I've seen the cover to the first issue by Romero, and it's really, like, it's going to be a really good looking book. It's going to be a really good looking book.
I love that you brought up some of the like, classical comic influences in the art, because this is sort of coming out as part of this big initiative that DC's doing right now that we've talked with a lot of people about on the show. And a lot of that is leading towards the new golden age, and Birds of Prey obviously like wasn't a part of the golden age, and
Mhm.
yet this still feels throwbacky to something that's really only like 25 or 30 years old. And I think that has been super interesting to watch unspool this week.
What's been so funny to see a lot of Dawn of DC is, I mean, throwback without being just nostalgia, if that makes sense.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, like the Birds of Prey team is not the team that's existed before. It's characters who have been part of it, and in one case, you know, in Zella's case, never.
Yeah.
But it feels like something new, and in part that is, you know, it's Kelly's first DC series. It's might be Leo Romero's first DC series. If not, he's been at Marvel for a while at least.
Mhm.
But also they're doing something different with the book. You know, there's no like it's. I was going to say something that was complete spoiler there, so I'm not. I really did. I almost threw
Say
something
it
out
into my phone.
But the setup is new. You know,
Yeah.
that it isn't just in retrograde, and I think that's true out of so many of the Dawn of DC books, where it's literally you've read this before, but you've never read it like this.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
pushing something forward that is really exciting. That's a balancing act that I think is being done honestly really well across the line. I think the Dawn of DC books so far have been genuinely great. You know, you look at something like Mark Waid and Dan Moore's Shazam, or the you know, Josh's Superman book with Jamal Campbell.
Oh yeah.
And they're just it's everything you remember but done in a different way. So you're just like, okay, so it is the balancing the old and new in such a way that as an old fan, by which I mean a fan who's been, you know, a fan for a long time, but also I'm old. Like that it's very exciting. It's very exciting to see.
It seems like they're finally threading the needle of the tightrope of like servicing fans who've been around for years and years and years, and welcoming newer fans who maybe know these characters from Harley Quinn, the animated series, Justice League, the animated series, the DCEU movies, like any of the sort of newer, more contemporary stuff. This seems like it could be a jumping on point if people don't get
very, very much.
too afraid of like, don't look at that poster. It's scary.
Future spoilers. I've read the next issue of Unstoppable Doom Patrol,
Yes.
which is a perfect example of that, because it manages to thread all the previous comic continuity, even the stuff that is contradictory, plus the TV show together in such a way that I was like, oh wait, so we're saying, and that's really smart, that's really clever. Yeah, so it is. These books are really good jumping on points.
Ooh, fascinating, Captain. Okay, I want to bring up a comment from Tom Trainer and get your input. So Tom says, Kelly's a writer that I know the name of and is generally well thought of, but I haven't actually read much of her work. And then Popverse is making suggestions. So Graham, do you have any like recommended reading if people want to get into Kelly Thompson to have an idea of what we're getting into for Birds of Prey?
I mean, I think that a Hawkeye seems an obvious go-to, right? Because it's exactly the same creative team. I think Captain Marvel might be the book to really look at, though. Captain Marvel, I think, was a really good take on a pre-existing character with a pre-existing fan base that then built on that and built on her relationships inside the larger Marvel universe.
Ooh.
That I think was a really, and also does such in a way that it is not gatekeepery, or if you haven't read the story, you're missing out. Was very good at saying, this is all you need to know. Now let's move forward. I do think the Captain Marvel run is honestly sort of underrated and undersung, which is so weird considering like Captain Marvel's in the movies.
But that seems to be, I'm going to say this as a blanket statement. You can tweet me at Ashley B. Robinson if you disagree. I think that is systemic of Captain Marvel in modern comics. Like there have been great Captain Marvel runs that don't get their due until after they're completed and they've sat on the shelf for a little bit. Like people seem slow on the uptake with Captain Marvel sometimes.
I also think it's a problem of that series ran for 50 issues.
Yeah.
I think when you have a long running series, you get like the first 6 issues, people are paying attention, and then it settles into the fans like it, but no one's really talking about it. You know, unless you do something dramatic like kill someone or whatever. Like, you know, Chip Zdarsky's Daredevil is wrapping up, and that's also going to be, you know, close to 50 by the time it's done. That's, for my money, some of the best Daredevil that's ever been done.
Mhm.
And the fact that more people aren't saying that is another sign of like, is it just that people have gotten bored of it and there's a new shiny thing over there?
Which is so wild because like in the 90s when Birds of Prey started, like these most characters I feel like got like 60, 100, 150 issue
Right.
runs right off the bat, no problem. And now we're in the opposite where it's like 12 issues, 6 issues, 15, 25, and we're done.
It's so funny. One of the good things about, a Marvel Unlimited or DC
Universe?
UI. Yes, thank you. Thank you for saying that.
Can you tell which app I have on my iPad?
Is you can revisit like the 80s and 90s books.
Yeah.
And I have this new love of revisiting books that honestly are nothing special, and you somehow continued for like 60 issues.
Yeah.
And you're like, how did this happen?
Comics
this
was
book-
different,
this-
man. Comics was different in the 90s.
They really were.
Nobody has
I'm,
seen.
I'm going to throw a book under the bus now because it's a book that I enjoy, but it's a book that is 100% fine. Like, entirely fine. The 1980s Starman book, not the James Robinson one.
Yeah. I was like,
The
someone
Roger-
somewhere just threw their phone across the room.
The Roger Stern and Tom Lyle
Yes.
Starman book is,
Oh, Tim Drake's own Tom Lyle.
but it's fine. It's okay. It's completely serviceable, but there's nothing special about it, and it continued for like 50 issues. That would just never happen today.
Well, it would have been axed by AT&T or whoever.
No, I think they would have made it like 6 issues, and then they'd be like, "Yeah, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
sorry,
yeah,
Will Payton fans." It's completely fine, but it's completely fine.
Tom Trainer, selfishly, because I know you listen to my podcast, Geek History Lesson, we have Kelly as a guest on episode 86, which was our Gem and the Holograms episode. And like I said, I do recommend that. I also recommend, particularly if you've read the Fraction Aja Hawkeye, Kelly does such a good run on Hawkeye, telling Kate's story, and then transitions into West Coast Avengers. Dun, dun, dun. That's a reference for like 5 people here.
I'm one of those people. I love West Coast Avengers.
Okay, thank you. But it's a really good, that West Coast Avengers team, that book is very, very good. So I think there's a lot, it's all like Graham was saying, it's all Marvel stuff. But I think if you read a couple of those different books, you'll get a sense of the tone. And then Popverse also is joining me in recommending.
I'm also going to say it's complete outlier, but Kelly's It's Jeff series with Guru Hero is just it's a perfect comic, and it's one of those things that I guess I have no idea if Kelly is continuing with Marvel now that she's taking on DC work or not, but it's the sort of thing that I just want to continue forever and just come back in like sharp bursts, because it is just such a genuine joy. See,
Okay.
Popverse understands Jeff the Land Shark.
I know we're getting nothing but Jeff ref. Look, the human shark hybrid thing is beyond what I understand why people like, but people love Jeff the Land Shark. And look, I'm just going to make this recommendation for you. Tubi is now making Tubi originals, and they have a movie called Shark Side of the Moon, which is exactly what you think it is.
That's all I needed to hear. That was it.
If you like human sharks, you're gonna love
Shark
Side
Side
of the Moon.
Have you? Okay, this is a completely different topic. Very
Please.
quickly, have you seen Moonfall, the film?
No, should I?
Oh yes, it's so terrible. Moonfall is a film that that Chloe Maviel, my partner,
Yes.
you will understand this joke. She instead just calls it Moon's Mad.
Great.
And that's all you need to know about the plot of Moonfall. Moon's Mad.
Okay, so I'm not asking you what you're geeking out about because we've given a lot of recommendations. So other than Barda v Black Canary, is there anything that you personally are really, really hoping to see in this Birds of Prey comic?
Things relating to the character that's not been announced yet.
Great,
so I can't
fantastic.
say.
So we'll talk about that
I'm also
week.
looking forward to see what is going to happen with Zealot, who is a really interesting character, and I think so much of the Wildcats mythology is fascinating and really difficult to work into the DCU. So I want to see what's going to happen there.
Well, as you know about the Wildcats, if you watch their 1990s cartoon, they are breakdance people. So
I'm amazed that hasn't been brought up in the Wildcats series.
that's another reference for like 5 people here. You're welcome. Graham, thank you for joining us and talking Birds of Prey. I have a feeling that you and I are going to be talking a lot more Birds of Prey in the weeks and months to come. But tell everybody, because I know you hate to, where they can find you on Twitter.
I'm on Twitter with @Graham M, and I'm not going to spell it because every time I spell it, I get it wrong, and it's my own name. It's on the screen. Graham M. That's all you need.
There you are. Thank you, and I'm going to send you off into the ether, into the Popverse. Bye. There we go. All right, friends. I want to give you this warning out of respect. We are about to enter spoiler territory. We had the amazing, the beautiful, the sexy, the talented Deputy Editor Tiffany Babb on with us last week to chat Across the Spider-Verse with no spoilers. Now we're going to talk Across the Spider-Verse with full spoilers. So if you don't want to be spoiled, you have like 15 seconds to like a minute to leave, but come back later and finish this episode because we're going to be talking all things spoilers. So put your hands together in one final theater kid round of applause and join me in welcoming Deputy Editor Tiffany Babb. Hi, Tiffany. Oh, I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Okay, it's good to see you and to be able to speak.
Not you being polite and muting yourself and then StreamYard being like...
And then just forgetting.
We don't need that. Look, it is a proud Popverse tradition of muting yourself. So,
So true.
Welcome to the club. Yeah, so, okay. We're entering the Spider-Verse. We talked about it last week. You were very lovely to me who hadn't seen it and everybody else by respecting our boundaries and not spoiling everything. But we do have a lot of really fun stuff on the website that you have spearheaded. So let's talk spoilers. Can we talk about some of the characters who appeared who were so fantastic?
Yes. I think the big one that everyone's been talking about is live action Prowler. To see Donald Glover reappear, kind of, but also like, is it the same Donald Glover that we saw in the MCU? Do we know he's in a suit now? It's the same guy, but you know, multiverse. But we do have a live action Prowler in a suit, and the suit looked pretty cool.
What do you think is the over-under on Donald Glover actually being the Prowler in some form in the MCU?
Oh my gosh. I think it's like 50-50. I mean, things are moving so slow with like, you know, they're talking about how they want to bring Miles to live action and all of that stuff. I don't think they'd bring him in if they didn't have Miles. And I mean, maybe they would. Who knows? Sometimes they do weird things. But, you know, time is ticking, and Donald Glover, this is what everyone says with all these kind of Donald Glover projects. It's just that he's so busy because he's working on everything.
Yeah.
So, you know, scheduling might be difficult. And as years go by, people are getting older.
Okay, so you evoked the Prowler. So this movie is shockingly Prowler heavy, considering we nerfed the character who is the Prowler, or at least who we think of as being this universe's Prowler, because even though Miles doesn't live in the 616, his universe is sort of our starting point. So let's talk all things Prowler. We not only have live action Prowler, but we get the return of Mahershala Ali as Aaron Davis, which I didn't see coming. I really loved that. And then we get Miles' turn as the Prowler. Oh, and we get Hobie Brown, who's a version of Hobart Brown, who is the original, like Prowler. She be everywhere. So give me all of your Prowler thoughts.
Yeah. For those who don't know, Hobie Brown in the movie is Spider-Punk.
Oh, yes.
But yes, so Prowler, we have Miles as Prowler with a new hairdo. They animate him differently. He has a different look. He's a little more sharp.
Yeah.
But what happens at the end of the film is, you know, Miles is running. He learns that from the Spider Society that he was never meant to be Spider-Man, that the spider that bit him was actually like taken from another universe. So he escapes him to try to save his dad. He jumps into this go home machine, which sends him home, except for the fact that it's following the spider DNA, and he ends up in a different universe. In this universe, his uncle is still alive. His father is dead. He tells his mom that he's Spider-Man. The mom does not know what's going on because there's no Spider-Man in the universe. And then, you know, he gets kidnapped, and he thinks his Uncle Aaron is the Prowler again because that's what he knows. But it turns out that the Prowler is him, alternate universe him.
I loved seeing just the change in the hairstyle was so incredible, and making him like slicker and sharper in the animation, like you said, like it makes him, it's funny what little changes make a character scary and like code them as a villain versus a hero, as we all know from like comic book language, but I'm so excited to see like PvP, Prowler v Prowler, Miles v Miles in Beyond the Spot. Like there are so many things that this movie sets up that I'm so excited to see. In the Miles of it all, what's your take on him being kind of the first aberration of the universe, like the Spider-Man who's not supposed to be Spider-Man?
I kind of love it. It's a commentary, right, about how people treat the new, treat the different.
Yeah.
There's in the movie, there's like the right type of spider person, and then now there's a wrong type of spider person. And when we've been seeing like all of these other Spider-Verses, it hasn't felt that way. It feels like endless possibilities, right? Like anybody can be a spider person, except now they're saying maybe not. And what makes canon, as they mentioned in the movie, and what doesn't, I think a lot of this has to do with the actual legality and history of these characters. Like, can you have a Spider-Man whose uncle didn't die? Can you have a Spider-Man who didn't have a captain who died, right? Does the character completely change at a certain point? But with Miles, we do have kind of like, he has the spider suit, he has the spider powers. If he's slightly different, if he wasn't meant to be Spider-Man, can he still be Spider-Man?
Yeah. Which is interesting because I'm going to get all the titles mixed up. Into the Spider-Verse, Spider-Verse 1 runs a lot on the thesis of like anyone can wear the mask. And I think it would be hyperbolic to say that they're undoing that in Across the Spiders, but they're sort of deconstructing it in this really, really interesting way throughout the movie that's obviously setting up what's coming in Beyond. Did you read Ultimate Spider-Man?
Like the
comic, the Miles, the OG one? Okay. What is your take on, is Jeff dying in movie 3?
Oh, I was at the edge of my seat during this movie because I was like, is he dying in this movie?
I
Like,
would
it
have been
feels like it's set
devastated.
up. It would be devastating. I think that's the power of this movie, and that's why this movie spoke to me even more than the first one did, is the parents. Like every single line the parents had was breaking my heart. There's this bit where the dad, he's saying something along the lines of, you feel like you've gotten used to the parenting and then they grow up. And I was in tears. And like you have this feeling, every kind of conversation Miles has with his parents feels like a goodbye. I don't know. I think that's the exciting part of this story, is it feels telegraphed, but there's so many twists, there's so many different things that who knows? Like, Miles is taking charge of his own story now. He's choosing not to be like the other spider people, right? He's choosing his own destiny. And that frees up a lot of this baggage that comes with being Spider-Man. Or maybe it doesn't. Maybe he can't escape it.
Maybe the third one, he's like, you know what? I'm done. Like, we're redoing Spider-Man no more forever. I'm actually done. The reason I asked about Ultimate Spider-Man, the original Ultimate Spider-Man run with Miles, is because if they're pulling from that, and if you had read that series, there's that camp of people who have like one opinion about what's going to happen in terms of Miles' relationship with his family versus like if you're just going from the canon. I have a lot of feelings about the use of the word canon. If you're just going from the canon of the movie, and I'm like, that for me is going to be like a really interesting sticking point. But did you find it too on the nose to use the word canon when these characters are referencing their own sort of meta narrative?
I was not in love with it. I didn't hate it. I did not like it. I can say I didn't like it. I would have preferred if they came up with some silly other term.
I agree. Even if it was like a goober, like if it was something that frivolous again.
Yeah. It was kind of too on the nose for me.
Yeah. Tom Trainer also coming in with a prediction. He's for sure saving Jefferson, if only to prove the destiny wrong. Like Brian Tyree Henry as Jeff is like the funny dad I didn't know I needed in an animated movie. He's so great. Tiffany, I want to finish up by asking you about Gwen, unless there's anything else. I know we haven't talked nearly long enough, but if there's anything else from Across the Spider-Verse you want to bring up before we get into Gwen talk.
Ask me about Gwen.
Okay. Huge Spider-Gwen fan over here. I loved starting the movie with Gwen. I think it opens the door to a really interesting possibility of the third movie maybe being framed as Peter B's movie. I would love that. What did you think about centering her a lot more in the narrative in this movie?
I think story-wise, it was really smart because we know Miles's story will not be finished in this movie. It's a
Yeah.
two-parter, and you have to have some sort of resolution, or else you feel like you've been cheated. So having Gwen go from where she is at the beginning, which is alone, no friends, not really connected to her father, and not being able to communicate with her father about being Spider-Woman, to at the end being able to reunite with her father, being able to feel more adjusted in where she is, and having friends and being on a team in a band. It's very moving in a lot of
Mhm.
ways, and I think having her frame the whole movie, even though like screen time, I don't know how much screen time she has. Like it feels like her arc is the emotional arc of the film.
Yes.
And plus, I think having the art style that they used for her in the film,
So
frame the
stunning.
film, you go in and you're stunned and you leave and you're stunned, right? There's just so much there that is exciting and new and impressive. So I think having that was a smart move.
Eric Burnham, who we released an interview with very recently on the YouTube channel, told me before I went to see it, he was like, I didn't think that the art could level up from where it was in Into the Spider-Verse, but it does. And I was like, I don't know if that's even possible. And then in the first opening sequence with Gwen, I was like, damn, he was right. It's like, it's so painterly, and it makes me even more, excuse me, I'm like choking on my own. I was going to say rage, but it's not rage. It's just like passion and happiness. It makes me even more excited for what we're going to see next year, and I hope that next year I get to go to the screening with you.
Yes. That'd be
Tom
fun.
Trainer says Tiffany's point is what helped me settle on the part one a little more. Miles doesn't have a completed arc in this movie, but Gwen does. Also, I'm sorry, my cable was right in the way of where the word settle was, so thank you for putting up with my horrible read. But yay, Tiffany out here doing the good work for the Popverse people. I think that's so sweet. All right, Tiffany, thank you for coming back and talking more Spider-Verse with me. I have a feeling this is going to be a topic we're going to be talking about more than once in the coming weeks and months and years. But thank you. I'm going to send you back into the Popverse to
Thanks for
do the
having
good
me.
work and
Bye.
explain everything to everyone because we love you and you're beautiful and amazing. Okay, bye. That was so nice. Thank you for everyone who stuck around for spoiler talk. We try to be as respectful as possible about everybody's ability to see things, but Tiffany and I just couldn't hold back. So thank you for everyone who joined us and for all your comments. I also want to give a final shout out to Box Lunch Gifts, who sent me this incredible shirt as part of their ongoing Sanrio Hello Kitty crossover. They've given me so many amazing pieces to wear here on Enter the Popverse. So shout out to them. Be sure that you are checking out all the cool geeky clothes that they are supplying for everything that we love so much is coming out in the coming days. My friends, we have come to the end of the show. I know it's devastating. I am devastated, but I thank you for joining us. As always, if you want to see anything more about anything that we covered here, go down to the show notes. I'm going to link everything that we reference as soon as this is done. You can also always find everything over at thepopverse.com. And I want to encourage you while you're over there, why not get yourself a Popverse membership? That gives you access to everything that we're doing and gives you access to things that like exciting pre-sales like Florida SuperCon, which is our next live show at the end of June, the July 4th weekend in Miami, Florida. I'm going to be there hosting a bunch of fun stuff. I hope you will come and I hope you will say hello while you're there. If you haven't had enough of your Spider-Verse fix, I'm just going to tease this too. The Hall has some really, really incredible Across the Spider-Verse tie-in merch that you maybe want to go check out. Right? It's worth. You don't have to trust me, but you should trust me. So subscribe to this channel. Do what this little banner is doing right here. Click that bell so you never miss when we go live. I saw that someone came in late today, and I'm so sorry, but if you subscribe and click the bell, you will have as much notice as possible so you can come and join us for the chats. You can ask everything that you want to. I have been Ashley Victoria Robinson, your host and video producer here in the Popverse. Thank you so much for joining me, my friends, and I will see you next time.